The rope creaked with every gust of the desert wind, a macabre melody that could chill the blood of the most hardened man. Jasper Iron McGannon reined his horse to a halt beneath the sprawling shade of the great, solitary oak. His eyes, blue as chips of winter ice, were fixed on the small figure hanging motionless from the thickest branch. She was just a girl. She couldn't have been more than 12. Her buckskin dress, Apache in make, fluttered like a silent battle standard against the unforgiving New Mexico sky. Nailed to the tree's trunk was a crude sign, the words scrawled. In dried blood, the letters coarse, but unmistakable. "The white man does not forgive." Jasper spat onto the dusty ground. The bitter taste of his morning whiskey mingled with the bile rising in his throat. In his 38 years chasing bounties across the territory, he had seen atrocities that would make saints weep. He had seen men flayed, towns burned, hope extinguished in the blink of an eye. But this was different. The girl's face was serene, almost peaceful, as if she had found a rest in death that life had never offered her. Her black braids, adorned with small feathers and beads that glinted faintly in the merciless sun, fell on either side of her head. There were no signs of torture, no visible blood save for that on the sign. There was only the rope and the poster. Mute testaments to a perverted justice that was eating away at the soul of the West like rust on steel. "Damn you all to hell," Jasper murmured, dismounting with slow, deliberate movements. His spurs chimed against the stones, each step a gunshot in the mortal silence that enveloped the place. The wind had ceased completely, as if nature itself was holding its breath before the abomination it witnessed. With hands that trembled hands that hadn't shaken, even in the most brutal gunfights. Jasper untied the rope. The girl's body was surprisingly light, as if the hatred that had brought her here had consumed all her earthly weight. He carried her to his horse, wrapping her small form in his own travel-worn blanket, the same one that had served him for countless nights under the desert stars. "I'll give you a proper burial, little one," he whispered, his voice rough with disuse and whiskey. He knew she couldn't hear him, but the words felt necessary, a vow made to the vast, indifferent emptiness. "And I will find the bastards who did this." His voice broke slightly on the last words, a crack in the armor of indifference he had painstakingly built over the years. For the first time, in what felt like a lifetime, Jasper McGannon felt something other than a hollow void in his chest. He felt rage, pure, crystalline, and cold as a mountain spring. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon when Jasper finished digging the grave. He chose a spot beneath a rock formation that offered some measure of shade from the relentless glare. He had no Bible, but he mumbled the few prayers he remembered from his childhood in Georgia, from a time before the war had unmade him and remade him into what he was now. He fashioned a rudimentary cross from 2 branches and placed it at the head of the small mound of earth. Beside it, he laid the feathers he had carefully collected from the girl's hair. As he rode away, Jasper didn't look back. He couldn't, but he seared every detail into his memory. The exact position of the tree, the direction of the wind, the scent of sagebrush and death that permeated the air. Someone would pay for this, and when they did, they would learn the true meaning of fear. The sign had spoken of the white man's unforgiving nature, but they were about to discover that Jasper McGannon didn't forgive either. The nearest town was Silver Creek, a 3-hour ride to the south. Jasper spurred his mount, determined to arrive before nightfall. He had questions to ask, and if necessary, bullets to fire. The Apache girl deserved justice, and he would give it to her, even if it cost him his life. In the West, a man was only as good as his word, and Jasper had just given his to a dead child. Silver Creek was little more than a collection of dilapidated buildings clinging to life like ticks on a dying dog. It was a place born of desperation, home to nearly 200 souls who had come seeking silver and found only dust and disillusionment. Jasper rode down the main street, as the first lamps began to glow in the windows, casting golden rectangles upon the dirt packed hard by 1,000 hooves and boots. The Golden Horseshoe Saloon was the town's palpitating heart, the place where miners drowned their sorrows and cowboys spent their wages on watered-down whiskey and weary women. Jasper tied his horse to the hitching post and pushed through the swinging doors. His eyes adjusted quickly to the gloom, thick with the smoke of tobacco and the sweet, sickly scent of laudanum. Conversations sputtered and died as the patrons recognized the kind of man who had just entered. He was not a prospector, not a ranch hand. He was trouble, wrapped in leather and smelling of the trail. Whiskey. The good stuff, Jasper ordered, his voice a low gravel that cut through the remaining murmurs. The bartender, a bald man with arms like tree trunks and a scar that bisected his left cheek, nodded without a word. He poured an amber liquid into a grimy glass. It smelled, at least, like it was supposed to. Jasper drank half of it in one swallow, feeling the familiar burn slide down his throat like liquid fire. New in town, a voice observed from the end of the bar. Jasper turned slowly. The speaker was a small man dressed in black, with beady rat-like eyes, and a smile that never came close to reaching them. A sheriff's star was pinned to his vest, so tarnished and crooked it looked more like a parody than a symbol of authority. Sheriff Cornelius Pike, at your service, the man said. His voice oily. Jasper McGannon, he replied, not offering his hand. I'm asking about something I saw on my way here. An Apache girl, hanging from a big oak, a few miles north. The saloon fell completely silent. Even the piano player, a gaunt man with a perpetual cough, froze with his fingers hovering over the yellowed keys. Pike cleared his throat, his fake smile becoming even more strained. Ah yes, a terrible business, that, but justice is justice, ain't it? The little savage had killed one of our most respected citizens. Judge Whitmore ordered the punishment, according to the law. His words sounded rehearsed, as if he had repeated them many times to other curious strangers. A trial, Jasper asked, finishing his whiskey and signaling for another, with witnesses, evidence, a lawyer. His tone was casual, but anyone with experience in these matters would have noticed the tension gathering in his shoulders, like coiled springs. Or was it one of those quick decisions that are so fashionable out here? Sheriff Pike swallowed audibly, his rat eyes darting nervously around the saloon. Several men at the poker tables had stopped playing and were now watching them with poorly disguised interest. Look, stranger, Pike said, trying to puff out his chest. I don't know what interest you might have in the legal affairs of Silver Creek, but I assure you, everything was done according to territorial law. The girl murdered Mr. Josiah Morrison, our beloved banker, in cold blood. She was seen by 6 witnesses. How convenient, Jasper murmured. A 12-year-old girl murders a grown man, a banker, in cold blood. With what weapon? Where are her family? Did no one speak in her defense? Each question was a nail hammered into a coffin, and Pike knew it. I've said enough, the sheriff snapped, trying to regain his composure. If you want to know more, talk to Judge Whitmore tomorrow. He has his office in the bank building. Pike turned to leave, but Jasper's voice stopped him like a lariat around the neck. Sheriff, Jasper said, his eyes fixed on the grimy mirror behind the bar, where he could see the entire room reflected. I hope you all sleep well tonight. Because tomorrow, when the sun comes up, things are going to change in Silver Creek. And I'm not talking about the weather. The ensuing silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Laden with unspoken threats and a palpable fear that smelled of gunpowder and blood. The Morrison Bank building dominated the main corner of Silver Creek like a cancer of red brick and pretense. Its leaded windows reflected the morning sun with flashes that hurt the eyes. Jasper had spent a restless night in the livery stable, sleeping little, tormented by dreams of an Apache girl with eyes that didn't accuse, but simply asked, why? Now. With the first coffee of the day burning in his empty stomach, he was heading for answers. Judge Whitmore's office occupied the second floor, accessible by an external staircase that groaned ominously under his weight. The door was ajar, and from within came the sound of someone drinking with the desperation of a morning drunk. Judge Whitmore? Jasper asked, pushing the door fully open. The man behind the desk might have been impressive once. Now he was just a ruin. His gray hair was disheveled, his eyes were bloodshot, and a constant tremor shook the hands that clutched a whiskey bottle as if it were a lifeline. Who's asking? Whitmore mumbled, not looking up. His voice was pasty and rough, like sandpaper. If you're here on legal business, you'll have to wait. If you're here for money, I don't have any. If you're here for absolution, that ship sailed long ago. He drank directly from the bottle, spilling some of the liquid on his stained vest. Jasper closed the door behind him and approached the desk, moving a stack of legal papers to perch on the edge. I'm here about an Apache girl you ordered hanged a few days ago. I want to know why a 12-year-old creature deserved to die for something she probably didn't even understand. His voice was low, but it was charged with an authority that made Whitmore finally lift his head. The judge said, his eyes struggling to focus. Another Samaritan. Do you know how many have come already? 3. All asking the same thing. All wanting justice for the little savage. He laughed bitterly, a sound like shattering glass. Where were you when Josiah Morrison was bleeding out on the floor of his own bank? Where were you when his wife found the body? Tell me what really happened, Jasper insisted, his hand resting casually on the butt of his Colt. No embellishments, no lies, just the truth. Whitmore studied the stranger's face, seeing something there that made him sit up a little straighter and push the whiskey bottle away. The girl's name was Anna, according to the Apache interpreter we brought in, he began, his voice acquiring a more sober tone. She appeared in the bank on a Tuesday morning, covered in blood, with a knife in her hand. Morrison was on the floor, dead. It seemed quite clear what had happened. He paused, his eyes lost somewhere beyond the dusty window. Seemed, Jasper repeated, or was it what you wanted it to seem? The question hung in the air like gunpowder. Smoke. Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. Look, stranger, he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. In this town, there are things a man learns not to ask if he wants to keep breathing. Josiah Morrison wasn't the saint everyone believes. He had weaknesses that involved young girls, especially those who couldn't complain, or those no one would believe. The words fell like stones into a deep well. Jasper felt the blood freeze in his veins. Are you telling me the girl was defending herself? The image of Anna, hanging from the oak, suddenly became more obscene, more perverse. It hadn't been justice. It had been the cover-up of a greater abomination. The sacrifice of a victim to protect the memory of a monster. I'm not saying anything, Whitmore murmured, reaching for the bottle again with trembling hands. I'm just drinking until I forget I was ever a judge. Until I forget I ever believed in justice. Until I forget that I ever thought doing the right thing mattered. He drank long and deep. But if you're looking for the real culprits, Mr. McGee, you don't have to look far. Just follow the money and the power. They always lead to the same place. Jasper stood, his spurs tinkling like funeral bells. Thank you for your honesty, Judge, he said, heading for the door. It was more than I expected to find in this town of cowards and liars. He paused at the threshold. If I were you, I'd stop drinking just long enough to get out of Silver Creek. Before nightfall, things are about to get ugly. Josiah Morrison's house stood at the end of the street like a monument to greed. 3 stories of white-painted wood that contrasted obscenely with the adobe huts of the miners and cowboys. Jasper watched the property from the shadow of an abandoned warehouse. He noted the details a common man would overlook, the windows with their curtains always drawn, the garden too manicured for a town where water was worth more than whiskey, and the 2 armed men who kept a discreet guard on the back porch. The widow Morrison appeared on the front porch, like a black spider emerging from her web. She was dressed in rigorous mourning that failed to conceal an attractive figure. Even from a distance, Jasper could see her tears were as artificial as the glass diamonds adorning her pale throat. This woman was not mourning a dead husband. She was mourning lost comforts. Double quotes Mrs. Morrison, Jasper said. Emerging from the shadows and tipping his hat in a gesture of courtesy he didn't feel. I'm sorry to disturb you in your grief, but I have a few questions about what happened to your husband. The woman startled, a theatrical hand flying to her chest. Oh my. We haven't been introduced, she replied, her voice a flute-like trill that trembled on all the wrong notes. I am Constance Morrison, and I'm afraid I'm not receiving visitors at this painful time. Her eyes, however, were sizing him up like a merchant examining goods, calculating value and danger in a single expert glance. Jasper McGannon, he introduced himself, noting the name produced no recognition. I'm asking about the Apache girl. They hanged for killing your husband? It seems to me the story has more sides to it than they're telling around town. The words were like lit matches thrown into a tinderbox. Constance's reaction was immediate and revealing. That little savage, she spat, her mask of the grieving widow falling away like cheap paint in the rain. She killed my poor Josiah in cold blood, without provocation, without reason. She was a beast, just like all of her kind. Her voice rose to a hysterical shriek, attracting the attention of curious neighbors. Jasper watched the transformation with professional interest. He'd seen the same reaction in dozens of guilty parties. The excessive defensiveness, the compulsive need to convince, the hatred directed at the victim. A curious reaction for a grieving lady, he commented softly. It almost seems you hate the girl more than you loved your husband. How dare you? Constance shrieked, but there was genuine fear in her eyes now. Guards. The 2 armed men appeared instantly. They were hard types, their faces marked by violence and their eyes as cold as ice flows. Is there a problem, Mrs. Morrison? Asked the taller one, a man with a cross-shaped scar etched into his right cheek. His hand rested on the butt of his pistol with the practiced casualness of a professional. This man is harassing me. Constance sobbed, the tears now flowing with an authenticity she hadn't shown before. He's implying horrible things about my late husband, that he somehow deserved what happened. Sir, the scarred thug said, stepping forward. I think it's time for you to leave. Mrs. Morrison has suffered enough. Jasper smiled, an expression that didn't come near his eyes. You're right, gentlemen. I think I've learned everything I needed to know here. He turned back to Constance, inclining his head slightly. My apologies for troubling you, Mrs. Morrison, though something tells me your nightmares don't come from mourning your dead husband, but from remembering that living girl. The words hit like a slap. Constance paled to the color of lime. Get out, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Get out now, before it's too late. There was a genuine warning in her words. The first moment of honesty she had shown. Jasper walked away slowly, acutely aware of the 2 bodyguards following him with their gaze until he turned the corner. He had confirmed his suspicions. Morrison had been a predator. His widow knew it. And there were very dangerous people willing to kill to keep the secrets buried. But they had made a fatal mistake by hanging Anna. They had made her injustice personal. And Jasper McGannon had a debt too. Pay to a dead girl? Asterisk. The thirsty coyote cantina smelled of stale vomit, urine, and broken dreams. Jasper pushed through the burlap curtains that served as a door, entering a world where sunlight never reached. Miguel Santamaria, the owner, looked up from behind the bar. He was a small, wiry man with prematurely gray hair and hands that trembled slightly. Asterisk whiskey, Jasper ordered, placing a silver coin on the stained bar, and information, if it's for sale. Asterisk. Miguel poured the drink. Depends on what kind of information you're looking for, amigo, he replied, his Mexican accent softened. By years of living among gringos, there are things a man can say without consequence, and others that cost him more than money. His eyes flickered nervously towards the back tables, where two cloaked figures sat in silence. Asterisk. Jasper followed his gaze. Tell me about Josiah Morrison, he said in a low voice. But don't give me the official version. I want to know who he really was, what he did when he thought no one was looking. Asterisk. Miguel's tremor intensified. A bead of sweat rolled down his wrinkled forehead. Mr. Morrison was a man of business, he began, choosing his words like someone walking through a minefield. He had many interests. The bank, of course, but also other ventures. Ventures that required discretion. Asterisk. What kind of ventures? Jasper pressed, sliding another coin across the damp wood. Asterisk. Miguel glanced around nervously before leaning forward. Girls, he whispered, the word falling between them like a stone in a silent pond. Young girls. He bought them. From traffickers, from desperate families. Sometimes, he just took them from the reservations during military raids. Asterisk. Jasper's blood ran cold. And what did he do with them? But he already knew the answer. He could see it in Miguel's tormented eyes. Asterisk. My God, Jasper murmured. And no one did anything. No one said a word. Asterisk. Who was going to talk? Miguel asked bitterly. Morrison owned the bank. He had half the town in his debt. Sheriff Pike owed him his job. Judge Whitmore owed him his appointment. Those who knew were bought, and those who didn't know, well, they preferred not to know. He poured himself a shot and downed it. Asterisk. And the Apache girl, Anna, Jasper asked. How did she end up with Morrison? Asterisk. Miguel closed his eyes, as if to block out the images that haunted his memory. They brought her in a month ago, after Captain Forsyth's last raid on the Mescaleros. She was just one of several, but Morrison wanted her for himself. He said the Indian girls were more submissive. The word left his mouth like poison. But she wasn't submissive, Jasper said, more a statement than a question. A fierce, pained smile touched his lips. The little warrior had fought back. For the first time since finding her body, he felt something akin to respect for the dead child. She had fought. She had resisted. She had exacted a price for her stolen innocence. Asterisk. When they found Morrison, Miguel continued, his voice a thread. Well, let's just say Anna made sure he could never hurt another girl again. But that didn't matter. The town needed a scapegoat, and a dead Indian girl couldn't defend herself in court. His eyes filled with tears he refused to shed. Asterisk. The cloaked figures at the back had moved closer. Jasper could feel their eyes on his back. Miguel, he said softly, I think you should close up early today, and maybe take a vacation. Far away from this town. Things are about to get very dangerous around here. The cantina owner nodded, understanding the warning perfectly. The revelations had opened an abyss of horror. 6 girls, perhaps more, all sold like cattle, all tortured, violated, murdered, or worse. And Anna, the little Apache warrior, had been the only one with the courage to fight back. For that bravery, she had been hanged like a common criminal. Asterisk. A soft knock at his door broke his thoughts. Jasper drew his Colt in one fluid motion. Asterisk. Who is it? Miguel Santamaria came the whispered reply. I have information you need to hear. But not here. It's too dangerous. Jasper opened the door. Miguel was pale, sweating, his eyes darting round the hallway. The old abandoned mine, north of town, he murmured. Meet me there in an hour. He vanished into the darkness. An hour. Later, Jasper stood at the entrance to the Lost Hope mine. Miguel was waiting, smoking a cigarette with hands that trembled so badly, he could barely hold it. Thanks for coming, he said, crushing the butt under his boot. After you left, Morrison's guards paid me a visit. Told me to keep my mouth shut, or I'd end up like Lieutenant Kowalski. And what did you tell them? Jasper asked. I told them I didn't know what they were talking about, Miguel replied with a bitter smile. But in reality, I know a lot more than I told you this afternoon. Things that could bring this whole rotten network down. He pulled a yellowed envelope from his jacket, stained with what looked like dried blood. This belonged to Morrison. Stole it from his house the night he died, before the sheriff arrived. Jasper took the envelope. What is it? But a part of him already knew. Correspondence, Miguel said, his voice gaining strength. Letters. From other men like Morrison, in towns from here to California. Purchase orders, price lists, client names. Everything a federal prosecutor would need to dismantle the whole operation. His eyes shone with a fierce light. My younger sister disappeared 2 years ago. Now I know why. The confession hit Jasper like a hammer. He suddenly understood Miguel's transformation. It wasn't just courage, it was vengeance. It was brotherly love forged into righteous fury, just like his own for AANA. There's more, Miguel continued, pulling a second object from his jacket. It was a small, delicate necklace of Apache beads, clearly made for a child. This was in Morrison's bedroom, among his trophies. He spat the word. I think it belonged to Anna. Jasper took the necklace with hands that trembled for the first time in years. It was beautiful, crafted with love and care. It was all that was left of a truncated life, a murdered dream, a denied justice. Miguel, Jasper said, his voice hoarse with emotion. This changes everything. With this evidence, we can bring these bastards to a real court. No, Miguel said, shaking his head. There's no time. Morrison's guards already suspect I took something. They'll search my place tomorrow. Besides, what court would we go to? Every judge for 100 miles is either bought or intimidated. Jasper knew he was right. The corruption ran too deep. Legal justice was a fantasy in these lands. But there was another kind of justice, older, more direct. Then we'll serve justice the old-fashioned way, Jasper said, his voice taking on the cold, determined tone he had perfected over years of hunting criminals. Starting tomorrow at dawn. But first, you get out of Silver Creek. Tonight. Take your money, take what you can carry, and ride. When I'm finished, this town is going to burn. Miguel nodded. God bless you, Jasper McGannon, he murmured, shaking the bounty hunter's hand. And may Anna rest in peace, knowing someone fought for her. He disappeared into the night, leaving Jasper alone with the evidence of an atrocity and the weight of the vengeance he was about to unleash. Dawn broke over Silver Creek like a bleeding wound. Jasper McGannon was already awake, cleaning and loading his weapons with the ritualistic precision of a professional. His twin Colt .45s rested in their holsters. His Winchester rifle was loaded and ready. Today was about sending a message that would echo throughout the territory. His first stop was Sheriff Pike's house. He didn't bother knocking. He kicked the door off its hinges. Pike was in bed with a woman who was definitely not his wife, both naked and vulnerable. Good morning, Sheriff, Jasper said cordially, aiming his rifle at the man's head. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Pike scrambled for his pistol, but the distinct click of the Winchester's hammer being cocked froze him. "McGannon," he crowed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" This is justice, Jasper corrected coolly. "Something you've clearly forgotten how to administer. Get up, get dressed. We're going for a walk, and you're going to tell everyone exactly what kind of man Josiah Morrison was, and what really happened to those 6 girls. You're crazy," Pike stammered, but he began to dress. "No one's going to believe you without proof." "Oh, I have proof, Sheriff. Plenty of it." Jasper pulled out Morrison's envelope of letters and waved it. 15 minutes later. Pike was walking down the main street of Silver Creek with his hands tied behind his back and Jasper following. The rifle pressed against his spine. Townspeople stopped and stared, murmuring in a mixture of curiosity and alarm. Citizens of Silver Creek. Jasper's voice boomed. "Your sheriff has a confession to make. Something about the respected Mr. Morrison, and the real reason that little Apache girl had to die." Under the pressure of the rifle, Pike began to speak. "Josiah Morrison," he started, his voice cracking. "He wasn't the man you thought he was. He was a trafficker. He bought girls, young girls. He used them, and then he sold them. Or..." His voice trailed off. A murmur of shock and disbelief rippled through the growing crowd. "Continue," Jasper ordered. "Tell them about Anna. Tell them how a 12-year-old girl had the courage you never did." The Apache girl, Pike sobbed, tears streaming down his face. "She killed Morrison when he tried to. She was defending herself. It was self-defense, not murder. But we needed a scapegoat. Someone who couldn't talk. Someone who wouldn't be missed." The confession fell upon the crowd like a bomb. The official lie had been dismantled, but Jasper knew this was only the beginning. The midday sun beat down relentlessly as Jasper strode towards the Morrison house for the last time. The crowd followed at a distance. Constance was waiting on the porch, flanked by her 2 bodyguards. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the dawning horror that her world was collapsing. "Mrs. Morrison," Jasper said, stopping at the foot of the steps. "I believe we have some unfinished business." "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, her voice lacking conviction. "Your husband was a monster," Jasper interrupted, climbing the steps slowly. "And you knew it. More than knew it, you enabled it. You kept his house spent, his blood-soaked money, and when a brave child finally gave him what he deserved, you helped orchestrate her lynching to protect his rotten memory." The bodyguards moved, their hands going for their guns. Jasper was faster. His Colts appeared in his hands, as if by magic. The muzzles aimed at the men's hearts before they could even touch their holsters. "Gentlemen," he said cordially, "I suggest you reconsider your career choices. The business of protecting pedophiles and child killers doesn't seem to have much of a future around here." The scarred guard slowly raised his hands. "We were just following orders," he mumbled. Constance collapsed into a porch chair, all her defenses finally crumbling. "I couldn't stop him," she whispered, tears flowing freely. "I tried, at first, when he brought the first girl, but he told me if I said anything, he would kill me. And then, when I saw the money, the beautiful things I could buy." "So you chose silence," Jasper said, one of his pistols now aimed directly at her forehead. "You chose jewels and fine dresses over the lives of innocent girls. You chose your comfort over your humanity." Jasper slowly lowered his weapon. "Mrs. Morrison," he said finally, "you have one chance to redeem yourself." He pulled out Morrison's letters. "These contain the names of all your husband's co-conspirators. You will write a full confession, detailing everything you know. Then, you will deliver this evidence to a U.S. attorney in Denver. You will testify against every man named in these documents. Asterisk, and if I refuse? She asked. Asterisk, Jasper smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then, Mrs. Morrison, you will discover that the West still has room for vigilante justice. And believe me when I tell you, my version of justice is far less merciful than any federal court. Asterisk, the confession took 3 hours to write. When it was done, Jasper took the papers. Asterisk, double quotes. Mrs. Morrison, he said, you will leave for Denver at dawn tomorrow. You will take this confession directly to U.S. Attorney Thomas Hardwell. If you are not in his office within 5 days, or if anything happens to you on the way, copies of these documents will arrive at every newspaper between here and Washington. Do you understand me? Asterisk, Constance nodded weakly. What about Silver Creek? She asked. What will happen to us when this comes out? Asterisk, Jasper turned to the assembled crowd. Silver Creek will have to learn to live with the truth, he answered. You will learn that silence in the face of atrocity is complicity. That looking away when the innocent suffer is as criminal as wielding the knife yourselves. Asterisk, he turned toward his horse, then stopped one last time. Anna, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Her name was Anna. She was a 12-year-old girl who loved feathers and beads, who someone had loved enough to make her a beautiful necklace. She had the courage to fight when you did not. Remember her name. Remember what it cost her to do the right thing. Asterisk, he mounted his horse and rode north, back to the makeshift grave where he had buried the little warrior. The fate of Silver Creek and its web of conspirators, now sealed. The real justice, the one that would burn through the territory, had just begun.